Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Undercurrents. Yes. And today, well, we got a legendary one for you today. I am so proud to be introducing to the airwaves for the first time, and hopefully not the last, the eminent Bronx Borough Historian and all around great guy, Professor Lloyd Ultan. Yes. He'll be with us shortly. I'm super proud to have Professor Ultan. He's incredibly entertaining, incredibly informative. And why don't we just do a little brief intro before we bring the man of the hour on? So, of course, today we're going to have the honor, really, of having the Bronx Borough Historian talking to us about the Dodge family. And, of course, everybody out there in Manny Grossman land knows that we've been talking about the Dodge family and their various interests around the world, but we really need a real historian's view on this, in my opinion. So, of course, Lloyd Ultan, the official historian of the Bronx, and here he is receiving an award and a citation from former Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr. And, of course, Lloyd Ultan is the author of many books, these three being just a smattering of this man's output. And of course, The Birth of the Bronx, It Was Only Yesterday, The Bronx, The Ultimate Guide to New York City's Borough. Lloyd Ultan is all about the Bronx. He's a lifelong Bronxite, just like I am. And of course, we first met in 2007, which we'll get into in a second. But he's a noted lecturer, professor, author, and of course, all because he's a very eminent historian. So here he is at, of course, at the famous Woodlawn Cemetery, I'm assuming. And if I'm wrong, I'm sure he'll correct me. But Professor Ultan and I first met back in 2007 when I was a lowly reporter at the Riverdale Press, and I convinced my editors, the Stein brothers, to allow me to go out into Van Cortlandt Park and talk about Van Cortlandt's hidden treasures. And I remember calling up Professor Ultan back then, and he was so helpful to me. And we talked about some stones that are in the park that were used to test out the stones on Grand Central Station and so on and so forth. So we are extremely excited to introduce the man of the hour to you. Because as you all know, it ain't about me. It's about we. So everyone, would you please put your hands together for the one, the only Professor Lloyd Ultan. How are you, sir? Thank you so much for being with me today.
Well, glad to be here. I just wish I knew who you were talking about.
Oh, you are so modest. You are so modest. You know you're the man. Come on. Yeah, by this point, you know you're the man.
Well, at least I know that I'm male. But the
Be careful. You get in trouble nowadays for saying that. So
that's how many people work for the post office delivering the mail.
that's funny. So yeah, so Professor Altan, let's just ease on down the road. Of course, the audience knows, and I was just making you aware just before our show that we first became interested on this channel about the about the Dodge family, because we are looking into this very mysterious murder of a socialite in Riverdale by the name of Alfred Hunt Howell. We've already done about 10 episodes on it, and it has captured the audience's attention greatly, mainly because this guy, Alfred Hunt Howell, living in Riverdale here, an unassuming man, living on in a house on Palisade Avenue. You look at his curriculum vitae, and it's all trustee the Frick Collection, American University of Beirut, American University of Beirut Foundation, and then you see this thing here called the Cleveland H. Dodge Foundation. And so, as a student of history, I became very interested in the Cleveland Dodge Foundation, but I quickly realized that I need the help of a pro. So why don't we get into that? But first, I think we should do a little overview using Google Earth, if you don't mind, of the Bronx, Riverdale, and then we'll focus in on the Dodges. Whoops, let me get that up for you. So we are now looking at a map of what over here?
Now that's Uh, that is the entire range of the borough of the Bronx, which is actually 42 square miles in geographical size, which, believe it or not, is about the same size as the city of Paris or the
Oh
city of
wow.
San Francisco. The Bronx alone is that size,
Right, right. Big.
and it's a and Riverdale is up there in the northwest corner of the Bronx, and it was always in a way separate ge- geologically from the rest of the Bronx because of the huge escarpment that that brings the heights of Riverdale down to Broadway and Van Cortlandt Park. So, in a sense, Riverdale has something of a separate development from most of the rest of the Bronx, but it is a part of the Bronx, and the people there do take part in the Bronx events, and therefore, it is important. It is very, very important. But people who go to Riverdale are very shocked to find that there are mansions that
Yes.
Bronx, and of course, one of the most prominent ones, and in fact, twos, are the Dodge mansions that were put up there by the family. Uh, and that one that you have there up in there, that's the original one that was built in the 1860s by William E. Dodge, who was the guy who was the head of the Phelps Dodge company, which was started by his father uh, and developed even further by William E. Dodge. And the one in back that was built by William E. Dodge's son, uh, Cleveland H. Dodge, and he lived in there, and both have important parts in the history of the Bronx and of New York City, and even in some ways of the history of the United States and the world beyond.
Yeah, let's get into that. But first, let's talk about how did when did the Dodgers first come to Riverdale, and is there any particular reason why they came to Riverdale as opposed to Yonkers or Washington Heights or any
Uh,
other
well,
Rivertown?
well, believe it or not, when they came, it was Yonkers. The
Oh, right, right. It was Westchester County.
That's right. It was part of the Bronx was originally part of Westchester County, and there was a great movement on the part of wealthy and well-to-do people to escape the hurly-burly and the smells and uh, uh, the strains of living in a bustling city like New York, and they were moving to suburban villages. And at the time, starting in the 1840s or so, there was a great movement on the part of people who own property to convert their property into suburban villages. And in what is now Riverdale, in the 1850s, there were two consortiums that divided, purchased farms, created land, and sold it to very wealthy people, wealthy industrialists and merchants of New York City, to build their own mansions there, mostly originally as summer residences. They would be spend the winter in New York, and they would spend the summer in places like this. And this is, of course, where William E. Dodge lived. And as I said, it's called Greystone, and for obvious reasons, it's made out of a gray stone. It's gray granite,
Right.
uh, and it's quite substantial. William E. Dodge had a big family, and uh, he raised them there, of course, in the summertime. In the wintertime, he had a house closer to the center of New York City on Madison Avenue, and both uh, and his children after he passed away had access to both the Dodge buildings in the Bronx and the one on Madison Avenue as well.
Now, where did William E. Dodge originate from? Do you have a do you know that?
Well, William E. Dodge himself was born in New York City, but his father, who was also William E. Dodge, uh, was born in Connecticut and moved to New York City. Became very involved in New York City affairs. He partnered with his in-laws, the Phelpses, and the father of William E. Dodge, also William E. Dodge, uh, uh, created the Phelps Dodge Corporation, and basically their business was importing. They were importers in New York City, and of course, New York City being a major port,
Right.
um, it was a very profitable. Um, in the 1850s, the father of our William E. Dodge um, was elected to the House of Representatives, and this was about 1858.
Mhm.
And this is just before the Civil War. There's great tension in the country over slavery, and he was against slavery over there and spoke vehemently against it. Um, when the Civil War broke out, our William E. Dodge, the one that eventually developed his mansion in Riverdale,
Mhm.
was very interested and very active in supporting the Union side. He joined the Union League Club, which was a group of people who were avid Union supporters in the war. And one of the things that he did, he was a part of a committee appointed by the New York State Legislature to look into uh, the welfare of Union soldiers from New York State. New York, each state had its own regiments in there, and he went around to take a look to see how well they were doing and if they were well taken care of. And he was actually cited after the war was over by the New York State Legislature for his work and his commitment.
Now you
And
talked about just real quick. You talked about the Civil War. There's a Dodge that I found, Greenville Mellon Dodge.
uh-huh,
Um, and he was apparently a pioneering figure in military intelligence during the Civil War, who served as Ulysses Grant's intelligence chief in the Western Theater. Do we know if this Grenville Mellon Dodge is related to our Dodges in Riverdale?
I'll give you a positive could be.
Okay.
It's
It's
you have to take a look at genealogical charts and things like that.
right,
The Dodge family was had loads of children and grandchildren and great grandchildren, and
right.
uh, they may have scattered throughout uh, the entire United States. And of course, he was, according to what you have discovered there, this Grenville Dodge was involved with Ulysses S. Grant in the Western Theater. So he may have come from what we would today call the Midwest.
Right.
And
Now I just
Grant
just
did.
for and just for the audience's sake, that actually brings us up to a good point because a lot of people, when they hear Dodge, they immediately think the car. This family is not the Dodge car family, correct?
That is correct. It is not the Dodge car family. They went around with horses and carriages.
Although you got to wonder, I wonder if there was some sort of genealogical connection. I mean,
Could be.
right,
Again, you really have to do research. I'm not a genealogist, but
right.
you know, uh, you, you'd have to go through all sorts of documentation to do that. And luckily, we have here in New York City the New York Genealogical and Biographical Society, which has been around
Ah.
for a long time, and they have a huge library of genealogical books and charts and things like that. And many people go there in order to find the answers to these questions.
Now, I'm reading about the Dodge family.
Mm,
And one of the things I'm reading here is that they were very active in Beirut, of all places, in
uh-huh.
the 1800s. Do you know
Yeah.
anything about this?
Well, first of all, William E. Dodge, our William E. Dodge, was a Presbyterian in religion, and he took his religion seriously. Uh, they were all sorts of. He was also a philanthropist. He was very interested in advancing the condition of mankind. And there is what is today the American University in Beirut. And he was interested in education as well. And
Hmm.
all of those things seem to have come together to further his interest there. And the interest was followed, by the way, by his son, Cleveland Dodge. So, who's
Right.
involved in the Middle East as well. So
And
he, yeah,
and this is a picture of Cleveland Hoadley Dodge.
that's right. Uh, and very serious guy.
But
The,
he looks it. But the thing that I just wonder about is it's the 1830s. Most Americans never even heard of a European nation. What was the interest in Beirut, especially for Presbyterians? I don't quite get that.
well, first of all, it's all near the Holy Land, and you also have to remember that the area, of course, is highly Islamic. Um, However, Lebanon itself, uh, which was considered then part of Syria, was a had very large proportion of the population, maybe even half of its population then, as Christian. So you would have the American University in Beirut that would teach
The
uh,
Christians there,
Christians there. Yes, and
right? It was a fairly sizable population there of Christians,
right, and even today there's a large number of Christian Lebanese.
right?
Uh,
Right.
most people don't know this, but the comedian and actor Danny Thomas uh, was Lebanese. He was a
Oh,
Lebanese Christian.
that explains the nose.
Right.
So all right, we took it all the way to Beirut, but we got to take it back to Riverdale here. We're having a little too much fun, Professor. Um, all right, so William E. Dodge comes to Riverdale. He's a mercantile importer with Phelps.
Yeah. That was his father. Now, when his father died, he took his father's place in the firm, and uh, what happened was that that they come up in the 1860s, uh, but it was a little bit later, about 20 some odd years later, uh, that they got involved with mining copper. And it seems that one of his investments was in a firm uh, called the Detroit Mining Company,
Mhm.
and which eventually he took over and became part of Phelps Dodge. The Detroit Mining Company found a real mother lode of copper in Arizona,
Mm,
and uh, the and eventually what happened is that that proved to be the real moneymaker. That was a maker of fortunes.
right.
Uh, and what happened is eventually the finding of copper was so great that it wound up as the site wound up as a big hole in the ground.
I can imagine. Yeah, I mean, well, they wanted that. They wanted that ore.
They wanted that ore, and it was neither or. The it was, but was it whatever it was? It really, you know, almost quadrupled the size of the fortune. It was very distinct, and of course it held the Dodge family in wealth for generations to come. No matter how many children they had and the stuff.
Right, I would imagine so. Was that their only mine, or was
No, no,
or
no, 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 no. It was actually two mines that had got together, and then they went even further and established a railroad in the area, which later became part of the Southern Pacific. It was sold to the Southern
Mm,
Pacific, but they started a railroad in the area, and you have to get the ore somewhere.
Right, right. I'm curious if there's any towns still in in these places like Arizona that are named after the Dodgers, like Dodgewood or Arizona or
I heard
Dodge, Arizona.
City, but I don't think it's the same Dodge.
Wait, what'd you say? I didn't hear you.
I heard of Dodge City.
Dodge City, but you don't think it's the same Dodge?
Same
Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious. It'd be fun to find out. So yeah, so this copper money, I mean, comparably speaking, they must have been multi-billionaires
Well,
to today.
well, today, yeah,
Right.
it was definitely several tens of millions of dollars, which of course went much further in those days. Uh, you know, if you went on a subway, it cost only a nickel. So
Yeah. So, but Greystone in Riverdale was already built.
yes, well,
Okay.
it was built under William E. Dodge's aegis direction. Uh,
Right.
he wanted it. He said, "Build it, and they will come."
But why Riverdale?
Well, again, you had these two developers,
Hmm.
two groups of developers that one in the northern part of the area, south of the College of Mount St. Vincent, bought land and called it Riverdale Park, and peddled it just as dirt. Uh,
Hmm.
wealthy New Yorkers, but wealthy merchants and wealthy industrialists to come up and buy the land. They could build whatever they wanted to on there, and of course, most of them built mansions. And
Now
then
I'm
just
curious. Where do they who so do you know the names of the original people who bought the land that of Riverdale?
it was more than one. I don't have them, right in my head. I don't think I could fit them all in there.
Now, who did
And,
they buy it from?
well, they bought it from the farmers
The
who had
farmers.
farms. Yes. Uh,
Okay.
the Then a few years later, there was another group of developers that started and followed the same playbook, and their land was north of 245th Street, and
Mm,
they called their development the Park Riverdale. Now that all started in the 1850s. Now, about roughly about 10 years or so later, comes William E. Dodge, and he places his mansion just across the street from the southernmost part of the Park Riverdale. So,
right.
so he was not, official and then officially speaking, part of Riverdale, but boy was he close. Right?
Right, exactly. And then it all kind of, I mean, right now it seems like they've taken that original Dodge land and broken it up into a lot of different parcels and
Oh, yeah,
they're
it happens, and happened, in more ways than one in many places. People had lots and lots and lots of land,
Mhm.
and uh, taxes grew up, and there was the opportunity to sell the land and make money. So the lots and lots and lots of land became lots and lots and lots of lots.
Right. Right, exactly. So I want to concentrate actually back onto the character of the serious one, Cleveland Hoadley Dodge, because
Mhm,
he was the one that kind of set up the foundation and all the
mhm.
philanthropy. Did his father have any philanthropic works, or was it
Absolutely, he was all over the place with philanthropy.
okay?
Uh,
William E. Dodge. Now we're talking about
William E.
William E.
Dodge,
Dodge.
yeah,
Okay.
William E. Dodge. Uh, uh, the uh, William E. Dodge in his philanthropic uh, eh, work uh, worked on a lot of cultural institutions as part of it. That's only a small section. He he was one of the guys who were behind the Metropolitan Museum of Art,
Hmm.
behind the Museum of American Museum of Natural History. Uh, he uh, he was one of the people who originally bankrolled the New York Botanical Garden.
Ah, my former employer.
Okay, well, I say the botanical garden is a growing profession. The
So
So
this is William E. Dodge himself. So this is the father of Cleveland Hoadley Dodge.
um, yeah, I
Wait,
think
no.
I have never seen a photograph of the two William E. Dodges, the father and the son. Uh, the uh, but the certainly in the second half of the 19th century, they those who had a lot of hair on the face, and that the that was the style of those days. Before the Civil War, it's like the difference between Abraham Lincoln before and after he was elected.
Yeah, exactly. He aged like 100 years too.
Yes, right.
So Cleveland. So all right. So William E. Dodge was a big philanthropist. His money
Yeah.
started all the great cultural institutions of New
Well, he
York
didn't
City.
start it, but he certainly backed it.
Hmm.
Uh, there was more than just just that, because he was also involved in things involving religion, and he also uh, gave uh, uh, gave to the uh, the uh, Evangelical Alliance. For
Hmm.
instance, he was the president of the New York branch of the Evangelical Alliance. He was also he was also active in the New York Temperance Society,
Oh,
which
interesting. So he was one of these no drinker type of
right,
people.
and in those days the thought was you have all of these hardworking poor people who, when they get their wages, before they go home to their slums, um, sort of head towards the local saloon and drink all of their hard-earned money. And so the idea behind the temperance society was to improve their lot
Right.
by denying them drink, and then maybe they would save their money. That was the thought of the time. Uh,
Right.
but of course, that eventually led to prohibition. But what can I say? It
Now was William Dodge involved in international affairs or was it mainly domestic?
was mainly domestic. Although he does have connections with places like the Evangelical Alliance, which was all over the place. But there
Uh-huh.
was a New York branch, and so he was involved in that branch. Um, so he did that, that sort of thing. Uh, he was involved with the Sunday School Association as well. To teach uh, the kids in Sunday school.
Uh-huh.
In that way, he's very much like Jimmy Carter.
Right. But it seems like Cleveland Dodge took it a step further in terms of the
Yes,
philanthropy and the international relations. Here he is with Henry Morgenthau, Ambassador Morgenthau.
that
Per-
that's the father of the guy who became the Secretary of the Treasury of the same name. Uh,
Right.
he was the American ambassador to Turkey at one point.
Okay.
Um,
And
and
here I see this group called the New Near East and the Near East Foundation was started by these guys
uh-huh,
as well.
yes. Well, there's if you'll note, uh, this is in the 1920s, and what started the interest in the Near East among all these other people that included Cleveland Dodge was the what is now termed the Armenian massacre
Uh-huh.
during World War One. The Armenians were Christians, and the Turks, the Ottoman Empire, had the Armenians within their borders, and they sort of marched them out of the Caucasus Mountains to some sort of place in Syria, and it was not a pleasant situation. And a lot of Armenians died there, and since the Armenians were Christian, you had these people who were uh, you know, uh, motivated by their religion to try to help. And one of the guys who alerted them to what was happening to the Armenians was Morgenthau, who was the ambassador to Turkey the American ambassador to Turkey at the time. Mhm.
That's him right here, along with
Right,
Cleveland Dodge and Ambassador Morgenthau's wife. And
right.
of course, what's interesting is that these connections go on to the modern day. Of course, Robert Morgenthau was the Manhattan DA for decades.
That's right. That's right. He was, and of course that he had a very very long tenure uh,
Right.
as the district attorney of New York County. That's the official title.
So, what were some of the things that the Dodge family did in Riverdale?
Well, Cleveland Dodge's son, also uh, named Cleveland Dodge. The names are passed on from generation to
Yeah, they
generation.
seem to like go between first name and middle name, and then they kind of
Right.
come back to the they come back in full circle.
Cleveland Dodge's son um, was very interested in advancing the people of Riverdale, especially when it began to get more and more urbanized after World War II. One of his major causes was the Riverdale Neighborhood House.
Mhm.
He gave a lot of money for that, and really touted it and advanced it as something that was very, very important to the people of Riverdale, especially the kids. Uh,
Right.
so there were things that were done then, and then of course there was the person we haven't talked about yet. This is Grace Dodge, who was Cleveland's sister, and the one who was very, very active in education. She also started out basically by teaching Sunday schools. Uh,
And that was that up in Riverdale?
no, it was down in Manhattan. Um uh, but the but one of the things she did was she is basically the founder of what is today Teachers College Columbia, and she was the person who practically ran the thing, and she was very very interested in making sure that teachers were well prepared to teach in class, and she was also the very first woman ever chosen to be a member of the New York City Board of Education.
Really?
Really, and this is even before women got the right to vote.
Well, I mean, I probably her last name had something to do with it, I would imagine, though.
And also her interest in education.
Right,
Uh,
right.
but she was also involved in again with industrial workers and improving the education of the families of industrial workers, and she favored uh, vocational education uh, and was very, very active in that as well. And in fact, after she died, there was a high school in the Belmont area of the Bronx. The Bronx is Little Italy
Mhm.
that bore her name, and it remained open up until 2015 when it closed. But
Here's an I here's an interesting article I found of, this was now Grace Dodge, right?
yes, Grace
Oh,
Dodge.
no, she was Grace Hoadley Dodge, I'm sorry, this is Grace Parrish Dodge
Oh, okay,
of Palisade Avenue and Dodge Lane, Riverdale, widow of financier Cleveland H. Dodge. So, no, this was the widow.
yeah.
I get these things confused, but
Welcome to the club.
yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so many Dodges, and
Right.
but she left a huge fortune for over $4 million, and for a woman, I mean, that's humongous, no?
Yeah, and well, when Grace Dodge, who was Cleveland H. Dodge's sister, died, she had over $6 million in her estate, and 1,500, let's see, 1,500,000 of that went to various charities that she supported,
Mhm.
and she left the Greystone Mansion to Teachers College, Columbia, to be a conference center. And it remained that way until the 1970s when Teachers College finally sold it and they sold it, believe it or not, to a Zen Buddhist group,
Oh,
and
really?
as to who later sold it to somebody else. So it's now again private property.
Wait. Do you know the name of that Zen Buddhist group?
Not again, not offhand, not on the top of my head.
Interesting.
These are not people who have Asian names. The Zen Buddhist group are Americans who just
Interest.
were attracted to Zen Buddhist as a Zen Buddhism.
I got
Uh,
to look a little bit more into that. And the connections abound. In this article about Grace Dodge's estate, here
yeah.
we have the name of Alfred Hunt Howell's wife, Ruth Rhea Howell, who was a Dodge grandchild.
Uh
In
huh.
fact, here's the address in which that murder took place.
Uh huh.
And interestingly enough, here's another name, Ruckert. This guy, there's a Ruckert who runs Columbia University right now, or is a big muckety muck in Columbia, or was a big muckety
Uh
muck in
huh.
Columbia. And this guy's on the Dodge Foundation as well. It's amazing how many of these names you see in articles from the 1920s, and then
Right.
you see the same family names in articles from the 2023, 2022.
Right.
So all right, so the Dodges, super wealthy, prominent Riverdale family. What are some of the names of the other major Riverdale families?
Oh my goodness. well,
Like, give us
well,
the top 3
well.
besides the
I hate to do that. But some of them have more interesting stories than others. But obviously, one of them are the Delafields, and the Delafields are responsible for for two Riverdale places. One is the Riverdale Park. In the 19th century, they actually had a lime kiln in Riverdale, what is today Riverdale Park. I understand that the remnants of it can still be there if you could find it. Uh, and they mine the Inwood marble, which is a very low grade marble, not great at all.
uh-huh.
But they were able to cook it down into lime, and they sold it to the builders who were building all the great houses and skyscrapers in New York City, basically to use as mortar uh, for the uh, for the bricks and the stones over there.
Mhm.
And then, of course, they also created Fieldston, and that was basically because the Delafield there was very, very concerned that the grid pattern of New York City as it was expanding northward, the grid pattern of streets, uh, should not be in hilly Riverdale.
Mhm.
He wanted to preserve the suburban atmosphere of Riverdale, and
Right.
so before the uh, the people, uh, the urban
Surveyors. Right.
area would reach there, he created Fieldston as a suburban area with curved streets and all of that. He actually had buildings built there uh, by Dwight James Baum, very picturesque
Right.
building.
It's two things that are very actually important, interesting about that is that that's a foreshadowing of what the people on in the Palisade Avenue area later did, which was protecting that area with the special natural area district. It's kind of a similar thing. Like,
Yes,
let's
yes. Of course, they didn't have that tool then,
right.
but
And another thing that's actually super interesting about that is the foresight involved, because I read this book called Mannahatta, which you may have heard of.
yes,
I'm sure you've heard of it. And it's a great for those in the audience, it's a great uh essentially it's a picture book. I mean, it's got interesting text, of course, but it's computer modeling of what Manhattan looked like 500 years ago. And I never knew that there were tons of hills and mountains and dales and glens and streams and lakes and rivers in Manhattan, because as you say, they blew it all up to put the street
right,
grid down.
right.
So this guy Delafield ensured that didn't happen in Riverdale. That's very actually
Yeah,
he's responsible for the modern look of it, actually.
exactly, and that's why Fieldston was declared one of the New York City's historic districts. Uh,
Right, right.
because it preserves it. Um, There's another one that comes to mind, only because we have one person there with a great story. There's a fellow by the name of Giovanni Morosini. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
Giovanni Morosini. No.
Yes. Now he was a partner of J.P. Morgan, so he had money too. Uh,
Yeah, I would say.
uh, when he claimed, by the way, to be a descendant of one of the Doges of Venice, who's
Okay.
named also Morosini. Uh, but he would go down by train and come back by train. And when he came back by train, he was met by his daughter, uh, uh, the Julie Morosini, and she would meet him in the carriage, and then she would then with the horse and carriage take him home. But more than that, Julia would uh, had coins in bags, and she would reach her hand into the bag and take out a fistful of coins and throw it over her shoulder. And all the kids up in the Kingsbridge area and up the road, up the road up into Riverdale would immediately run after the carriage and pick up the coins. All she was known as Lady Bountiful, and
Oh,
in later in life, when the area became more urbanized, uh, early in the urbanization period, uh, she would meet the bus coming up Riverdale Avenue
hmm
uh, at the bus stop that she was at, and the kids coming off the bus from school. She would be there with hard candies, wrapped hard candies in her hands, and she would give out pieces of hard candy to all the kids.
That's nice.
Yeah, well, also she was also interested in things that again most people don't know this, but on the site of what is today the Hebrew Home for the Aged
Okay.
uh, was up until 1946 the site of the Colored Orphan Asylum.
The
Now,
Colored Orphan Asylum. I never
uh,
heard of that.
well,
I'm gonna find this right now on Google Earth. You said the Hebrew Home for the Age site.
yes, the site of the Hebrew Home for the Aged. And
Okay.
the thing is that, by the way, the Colored Orphan Asylum is a very old organization. During the Civil War draft riots in New York City, the mob actually burned it down. Um,
Really?
yes, and not up here in New York City, and it moved several times northward until the last place it was in the place where the Hebrew Home for the Aged is today, and the
Now the
one
Hebrew
of
Home for the Aged. I'm just trying to find it here. Little difficult,
it
but
is different.
this is Mount St. Vincent right about here. So we're talking
It's
like
south. It's south of Mount St. Vincent. Yeah,
this is probably the campus right here
yeah,
of the
it looks
Hebrew
like it.
Home.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and well, what happened is that the houses, the buildings there are not the buildings that were there when it was the Hebrew Home for the Aged. But two things about this. One is tangential to what we're talking about. One of the uh, in the 1940s, there was one girl who was in the Hebrew Home for the Aged, and she loved to sing, and she sang all the time, and entertained the other kids. And then the Apollo Theater in Harlem started their amateur contest, and she went to the very first amateur contest, and she sang, and she wowed them. I mean, she really slayed the audience, and that started her career. And her name, many people often refer to her by her first name, Ella.
Oh, there we go. Ella Fitzgerald.
Ella Fitzgerald, yes.
That's
And
great.
I talked with some very elderly black gentlemen who were in the Hebrew Home for the Aged who remembered her there, and and said what a wonderful person she was there. But
See,
that's that,
that's what's amazing about Riverdale. I mean, when you scratch the surface, all the interesting and very famous people who've lived in
right,
this community.
right. Well,
Um,
the thing is that I was wanted to talk about was Julia Morosini,
mhm.
who had when uh, the the children there had their own public school. It was a elementary public school. And at the age of 16, you aged out of the colored orphan asylum. So they had their own school. And on graduation day, Julia Morosini, with one of her friends, would attend the graduation of the kids and then treat them to dishes of ice cream. And at one point, actually chartered a bus to take all the graduates to the Bronx Zoo
Oh, nice.
for an outing. I mean, that's the way she was, and
Right, right. That's
and
super nice.
yeah, she never married, she never had any kids, but it was like all the kids in the area were hers.
Right, right, right. So getting back to the Cleveland H. Dodge
Yeah,
of the Dodge family.
yeah.
So I'm interested, of course. We touched upon what they did in Riverdale. Very big philanthropist. Started the Riverdale Neighborhood House. The family's money started a lot of well, helped to build and start a lot of the great cultural institutions. We talked about the mining interests, Arizona mines, the original start as a mercantile company,
Mhm.
and how they came to Riverdale and built Greystone in the mid 1800s. And but then Cleveland Dodge seems to get a real interest in international affairs because I read that his one of his friends was Woodrow Wilson. Is that
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And the first time they met is when they both attended Princeton University as undergraduates. And they graduated from the same class together. And in 1902, when there was a vacancy in the presidency of the Princeton University, Cleveland Dodge, as an alumnus, and of course as the scion of a wealthy family, uh, uh, really pressed the board of trustees to choose Woodrow Wilson, who was by that time a well-known historian and political scientist,
Mhm.
uh, to uh, uh, to be their next president. And he was chosen that way. And then a few years later, Cleveland Dodge became a member of the board of trustees of Princeton University,
Mhm.
and he remained a very, very avid supporter of Princeton. Now he was very, very friendly and very, very close. He raised money for Woodrow Wilson's presidential campaign in 1912 and also 4 years later in 1916. And Woodrow Wilson was elected president and then reelected. The and During World War One, uh, in October of 1918, October 12th, 1918, it was Columbus Day. There was a big rally for Liberty Bonds in Manhattan, and both uh, Woodrow Wilson and Cleveland Dodge were there on the podium. And suddenly, somebody thrust a telegram into the hands of Woodrow Wilson, and Wilson opened up the telegram, glanced at it, and then he turned to Cleveland Dodge and he says, "Is there anywhere where we can go uh, and talk?" And he says, "Well, you can come to my home." He says, "Okay." Uh, and after,
And that home is this one here.
uh,
Oops, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Hold on one second. This one here.
yeah, it's the one that is more modern and lighter. It's more graceful.
Right.
Uh,
I'll show it on Google Earth. Give me a second here.
okay.
Window. So, all right. So carry on the story. So Woodrow Wilson gets a telegram on a float in a parade, standing next to
He's
Cleveland
not on the
Dodge.
floor, he's on the podium,
Okay.
viewing the parade along with Cleveland Dodge and others. And after it was over, Dodge goes into his automobile along with Woodrow Wilson, and they motor up to Riverdale to Cleveland Dodge's home, which is behind the original.
So that's
That's
this.
one.
So this is the original right here, the big Greystone
That's
Manor, and then
that,
just south of it is this house right here.
that's correct, and it's like orange brick with limestone trim, and it's lighter, it's airier, it's more modern,
Right.
uh, even though it's smaller. But yeah,
I'll take it. I'll take it.
Okay, but what happened was that uh, Wilson and Dodge, sit down, and Wilson opens up the telegram and shows it to Cleveland Dodge, and it is a telegram from the Imperial German government asking Woodrow Wilson his terms for peace. This is October 12th, 1918.
Wow. Wow.
Okay,
And this guy's sitting with Cleveland Dodge.
not with the Secretary of State,
Right, not with the Secretary of
his
War, not with the cabinet. He's sitting with Cleveland H. Dodge.
friend Cleveland Dodge. And they talk the whole thing over, and then finally Wilson says, "Well, is any place where I can sit down and write?" He says, "Well, there's my library." So they go into the library. There's a desk, and Wilson sits down and drafts a reply telegram. Almost to the day, exactly 1 month later,
Mhm.
the armistice ending World War I was signed.
Wow. So in this house right here,
Right. And
along with Cleveland Dodge as a witness, essentially World War One ended in
yeah,
this
the
house right
movement,
here.
the movement that led to the end of the fighting in World War One started in that house.
In that house right in Riverdale.
Right.
Wow. Well, I think that that is a great place to leave this discussion, Professor, unless you have anything else you wanna add. I think that, that is a major cliffhanger, and we should probably leave the audience there, but do you wanna add anything else to this, story of the Dodges?
Well, if all the audience is hanging by their fingernails by a cliff, I would say, you know, be careful.
That took a second for me to get. That was a good one.
Right.
So, all right. So, everyone out there, please look up Professor Lloyd Ultan's works. I'm sure you can find them all on his website, Amazon, wherever you buy books. You can buy his great works. And Professor Ultan, it was a massive honor and pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you
We
very much.
we
I
really
enjoyed it. I just hope that we didn't disturb too many people from their sleep.
No, no, we're just trying to get a better idea of what the Dodge family, who they were, what they were all about, what they did in the world, and this story about World War One ending in a house in Riverdale or starting the process is
Yeah.
an amazing, amazing story. So, anyway, Professor, would you just mind just hang out backstage while I take the audience on out, and I'll see you at the end of the show.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, guys. Well, I'm I'm riding high. We had Professor Altan on our show, and this is a real honor for me. I mean, I'm first of all, I'm a history nerd. I love all this stuff, and it's just a great pleasure to be able to do it with someone who is so prominent, so eminent, and well, just such a nice guy and entertaining as well. So hopefully, this isn't the last time we have the eminent Professor Altan on our show. Um, so we'll be talking about that with him. So anyway, guys, so I hope everyone enjoyed this. We have a great live stream coming up on Saturday morning where we're going to be talking about the Seton Park Dome and the Riverdale Neighborhood House and all that fun stuff. And so everyone, please stay tuned for the next episode of Undercurrents. We will see you guys later. Thank you very much.